We started making names right away. And I loved it. I was robbing drug dealers and taking their gold right off their neck. And the shit we did, who's going to call the police on you? A drug dealer?
I can identify with anything that was normal, to be honest with you. But I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah.
99% of the time, you're going to disagree.
Just like the Donnie Brasco situation with Lefty?
Yeah, because the reason why, they figure it this way. You brought this guy around, he ratted on everybody, now he ratted on you. You might turn around and join him and rat on us, so we get rid of you, there's no connection between there and there, and they get rid of you.
Welcome to another episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Red Wenette. What's up,
How you
Red?
doing, Bill?
How you doing, man? Thank you for coming on my show. I appreciate it. Finally got you here.
You're welcome.
Before we get started, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. What's up, Gianni? How you doing, man? Shout out to you. Bill Mason, what's up, man? Thank you for taking the time to come on here, Red. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I want to dig into your background a little bit and
Get your shovel out.
yeah, man, start digging. So, where were you born and raised, Red?
Raised, let's start out in the beginning. I was born in Chicago at Ravenswood Hospital. Ravenswood Hospital. And from there, we lived in Chicago until 1955 in the city. And I didn't know for years why we moved to the suburbs, but there was a very famous murder where 3 boys were killed, 3 little boys. And my parents decided that that wasn't us. It was right in the neighborhood where we lived. So we moved out to the suburbs.
How old were you when you moved?
I think I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old. So it had been 1955. I was born in 49. So we moved to the suburbs. We moved to a place called Wheeling, Illinois. And that was not far from, I used to play around at Sam Giancana's Villa Venice in Chicago when I was a kid on the Plains River. It was kind of funny. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about the mob or anything else about the outfit. But then from there, we moved to Prospect Heights. And then from there, we moved to Moline, the Quad Cities, Illinois.
Moline, Illinois. I've been there before.
Quad Cities?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moline, Rock Island. I've been all over there, man.
I went to UTHS high school down there. I went to 5 different high schools. So from there, we moved back to Chicago, but Cicero. We moved to Cicero.
Did your dad have a bunch of different jobs? Is that why you kept moving around?
He had multiple jobs. He could not hold down a job. He really couldn't. He was a rock around my neck. He really was. But anyway, as I grew older. But from there, I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 17. Now, that's really where I grew up. You want to know where I grew up? That's where I grew up, in the Marine Corps. Because all that other stuff was kid stuff. That's all it was. I was playing around. But at 17, going away, it was totally different. I mean, it was a culture shock. And when I came out, it was like, these guys, these outfit guys are mutts. I mean, they're nothing like overseas. I mean, it was totally different. They were easy for me to handle. And in October of 1971, I became a mole for the FBI. They kept me very coveted.
How did they approach you? And what was the introduction to them to even approach you on that?
I was tending bar. I was a bartender. And I used to go from different outfit joints. And they were all pole dancers and strippers and buy the lady a drink, sir. That's what I do at the bar. buy the lady a drink, sir. And if they didn't buy her a drink, get out of here. Get rid of
Yeah,
them.
like, what are you doing here, right?
Right. If they didn't want to spend any money. I see Anthony's in here. Anthony says, "Did she see it? Fancy meeting you here." Hi, Anthony. How you doing, buddy? At any rate, from there, I was tending bar at the Nocturne, which was Bill Niff's place on Schiller, I believe, second floor. And Kurt Hansen came around, and he started talking. I filled in at this porn shop, and he started talking about it. And I said, "There's no money in these bars. I mean, there's big money in strip bars, but these porn shops, they're making big money. These guys are taking $3,000-4,000 a night. I mean, by the end of the week, they send somebody in from Cleveland to pick up the money." And he said, "Well, I can make that happen for you." And he said, "We'll be partners. You put up the work, I'll get the money." And I said, "Okay." And that's how I started into that. Wasn't long we were into that. And we went to Jimmy Coutura, who was a Southside boss at that time, May guy. And Jimmy was old school. He spoke a broken English. He nice guy though, very nice guy. I like Jimmy. Jimmy got along with me well, and or I got along with him well. And then all of a sudden, he says, "I can't do this. I can't help you. Go see Joey. He's a nice boy. He'll take care of you." So I go to see Joey Lombardo. And when I go see Joey Lombardo, I knew him I'd seen him. I didn't know him, really, know him. But I'd seen him with Milwaukee Phil and Irv Weiner, Tony Spilaccio, and the other guys from that crew. So I got set up, and they put me with Marshall Cafano. Marshall Cafano had just gotten out of prison. He extorted Ray Ryan on out in Nevada. He was the boss, like Tony Spilaccio was years ago. He was I don't know. He was a caretaker of Vegas, so to speak. But Johnny,
all
Johnny
these dealings you had with these guys was in Chicago, right?
Right. Marshall and I got along like two peas in a pod. I mean, we didn't have any problems with each other. As a matter of fact, the first time we were making a count on the peep shows in the back room, and he was supposed to get 50-50. And so we made the count, and it turned out to be $1,000. And he said, "Okay, I'm not going to count with you." He said, "Just give me $500 a month every month." He said, "I don't care if you make $1, $10, $1 million. You just make sure there's an envelope here for me every week for $500. I'm not going to count with you." We had a good relationship.
How much was the money on a normal?
Yeah, I went in and asked for permission rather than be muscled. I went in and asked for permission, and I told them I wasn't muscle. I just laid everything right out for them. I said, I'm a businessman. This is my idea, make money. And I was a good earner, a very good earner. So I got to meet a lot of other people and spend time with them, spend time with their families, eating dinner with them, going to weddings, going to funerals, that sort of thing. It progressed to the point where I was getting pretty much along the way. And we had some problems with different factions that wanted, because Joey went away to prison. Joey went away to prison in 1982 on the Pendor scandal. And before he went away, we had a big meeting. Everybody was there out of our crew. Vince Solano was there too, and he was in charge of Rush Street at that time. But he came. What happened at that meeting was Joey turned around and he looked at Frank Schweiss, who was a ruthless killer. I mean, most dangerous man I ever met in my life. And he looked at him.
This guy, right?
That's the guy right there.
He was good friends with Calabrese and them, right?
I don't think they were good friends. I don't know. I don't know.
They did killings together, right?
One or two. He was more or less. He worked with Wayne Bach. He worked with. Yeah, he worked directly for Joey. That's Joey
Joey
right over there.
Lombardo.
He was his bulldog, we said, because Joey'd say, "Go take care of it." But anyway, he said to Frank, he said, "You take care of that kid. Whatever he needs, you get him." So if I had a beef or something with somebody, I'd reach out for him. Meanwhile, he was down in Florida. Take him a while to get back. But there were a lot of people when Joey went away, they said, "Oh, well, we're going to go and take Red now. We're going to take him." And
So they were going to try to get your money because because he wasn't around.
They figured he wasn't around. So Frank comes into town. And he says, "What do they think? Because Lumbo's in a joint, something's changed." He said, "I got to straighten these pricks out." And so I said, "Okay, do what you got to do." I'm just interested in doing business. That's all. But that's how it came about. That's how it came about to be.
How long of a period of time was this since you got involved until they approached you to get involved with FBI?
The way they approached me is different. I approached them. I was in a tending bar, and we had like 4 bartenders, and we were told if the FBI ever comes in here, you do not disrespect them. You just say yes, sir, no, sir, but you don't know anything. You never give them any information. So there was a bartender by Nick, and by the name of Nick, and Nick was talking to an FBI agent, John Osborne, and John Osborne gave him his business card. And right when John Osborne turned around, Nick threw it in the trash. I pick it up, put it in my top pocket, and I save it. 2 days later, I
might need this, right?
Yeah, I might need it.
Did you have were people threatening you, or was there a situation?
No, I was loved, guy.
Was there was no situations that brung you to do that?
Motivated me? Yeah, my motivation was they were putting people in trunks of cars at O'Hare Airport. There were several people that were bookmakers that didn't pay up or something like that. They whacked them. I mean, that, like Sam DiStefano used to say, you'll be the best advertisement I ever saw in the trunk of a car. They'll know to pay.
Yeah, so, once you get that point across, right?
Oh yeah. Some people were walking advertisements with broken bones, and some people were dead as advertisements. But it worked. So at any rate, when I contacted the FBI, they didn't have caller ID or anything like you guys see now. They didn't have all the electronics. So I called in on the main line at the FBI, which at that time was 431-1333. That was their phone number, area code 312, but I lived in 312. And I went to the switchboard, and I asked to speak to John. John answered the phone, and I talked to him, and I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to offer my services. And he said, "Are you in any trouble?" And I said, "No, I'm not in any trouble." And he said, "Have you ever been indicted, arrested, anything?" "No." And so he asked for my date of birth, things like that. He did a background check on me. And he said, "Where can I reach you?" And I said, "You can't. I'll reach you. You don't reach me."
You're like, "Don't call here," right?
No, I didn't give him a number to reach me,
Yeah.
So at any rate, I called him, I think a week later, I called him up, and he said, "Where can we meet?" And I'm thinking off the top of my head. And I said, "How about the Lincoln Park Zoo?" And he said, "Okay, where? It's a big zoo, And I said, "Try the Lion House at the Lincoln Park Zoo." And he said, "What time?" And I said, 1:30. That was my favorite time, 1:30 in the afternoon. I didn't have to be to work till like 4 or 5. So it was a good time for me to be there. So I go there and I'm dressed up. I almost like Halloween, I'm wearing a Stetson cowboy hat, Western boots,
undercover,
old beat up blue jeans, a jacket, and you're not going to make me anyway. There's no way anybody's going to make me. I'm looking around. I got there early too, and they got there earlier too than they were supposed to be. But I made sure I was there earlier than they were. I had a couple guys covering me just in case. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I go in, I'm looking around, and I spot John Osborne. He's in a suit, tie, real thin tie, the old FBI back in those days, wingtip shoes and white socks. That was the dress of the day back then. And he's upside down.
Yeah, he's always upside down.
And at any rate, I walked up to him very casually. He was eating popcorn, and which is common. They want to keep their weight down. So if they're going to snack, they eat popcorn. And so I kind of like a herd or whatever, just very quietly, leaned over towards him, walked up to, and I'm looking at the cats and big cats. And I said, John? And he said, you must be Red. And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, come on, let's go out the back way. And we went out the back way, and there was another agent waiting by the back door. Bingo. I'm in an unmarked car, and they take me into Evanston, which is at that time right next to Chicago, but there was no mob presence there, period. So we go to a restaurant. He lays out his rules. I lay out mine. I say, this is the way it is. I will do everything I can to help you, but you never contact me. You don't try and contact me in any way whatsoever. There will be no way to contact me. I will call in. And we used a code name. Both of us decided to use a code name. He looked at my Marine Corps SRB, and he said, how about your commanding officer in the Marine Corps? And so my name from that point on was Art Zerzo, Zerzow. And I call in the gals at the desk, at his desk in his squad unit. I used to call in and say, hi, this is Art. Is John there? And they say, oh, hi, Art. How you doing? We became friends. It was just like one of the guys,
Yeah.
And that went on for a long time. And then Frank.
Was there any money involved? Did you have any money involved? Like, I need to get.
Yeah, I got beat to death on the witness stand. Or I don't know if I got beat to death, but every time I got on the witness stand, they asked me about the money. When I went to file trial, I was never supposed to go on the witness stand ever. But the first time at that restaurant, they gave me $25, and it said I had to sign a receipt that said for food, beverages, taxi fare, and cigarettes. Back in those days, you could have cigarettes and everything. I signed it for $25. They give me 2 tens and a $5 bill, and then they tell me to pick up the check for eating. So, was there any money? No, there really wasn't. Wow. Later on, when I testified, it came out to $1.63 a day. That's exactly how much I made off it. But I had several defense attorneys say, well, you were a paid informant. You took these taxpayers, pointing at the jury, you took their money. And
are they talking about the money for the cheeseburger? Is that what they're talking about?
Cheeseburgers, man.
Did they ever give you any substantial amount of money? Like, here's $5,000, here's $1,000 for this? No. They tried to use the cheeseburger money. That's funny, man. They used the cheeseburger money for your.
Later on, when I was working with the ATF, they looked at the amounts of money and they said, "Boy, why didn't you come to us? We'd have taken care of you."
That's terrible.
They called them the Phoebes. They said the Phoebes are so cheap.
Big Boy Blue, he's got a book. The link is in the description of this video. You can just follow the link, bring you right to his book.
At any rate, thank you, Big Boy Blue. What happened there? Where do you want me to go after this?
All right, so you meet up with him. You start meeting up with him
on a regular basis.
So,
the first operation I did was My Porn. Miami Porn. It was called My Porn. You could look it up on the internet. but basically it was everybody from the United States went to Miami, and there were 2 undercover agents working down there. I didn't know about it. They never told me anything. I just fed them information, but everything I fed them was gold.
Yeah.
I mean, it was right on the money. So I told them who actually represented what cities, who showed up there, and everything else. They liked it. And it just went on and on and on and on and on. And then eventually I had Marshall Cafano with me. He was trying to sell me some, or he wanted me to go out and get a loan on some Westinghouse stock, $1 million, $3 million worth of stolen Westinghouse stock. Only thing is, he made up counterfeit copies and gave them to me and said, go to the bank. You're a legit guy. My name, I'm well known from West Coast, Mickey Cohn, the rest of the crowd. I'm well known from, these are old people from the old days. I'm well known from the East Coast to the West Coast. I mean, New York, whatever. So he said, you go to the bank and get a loan. And he said, then you give me the money. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, okay, this guy is not going to make any payments on these loans.
No,
So
it's
I
like
said,
you're going to hand over your money, get a loan
Right.
in your name, give it to him.
oh, yeah. And
So
so
what?
I looked and I said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
No.
So there were things like that that happened. Other things I stayed out of. A couple of times I had close calls. Like I was at a betting parlor, an off-track betting parlor, and Vic Spalaccia was there, Tony's older brother.
Yeah.
And several other people. And the FBI comes in, and they raid the place. They bang me up against the wall just like everybody else. They dragged me out, but they put me in a different squad car. So when I got downtown, they let me go. And everybody else they charged. So all the guys were asking me when I went around the neighborhood, the spot that we talked about, Jimmy Kozo's place. They were all asking me, how did you do this? And I said, I got connections. My uncle's a judge. And they said, oh, really? And I said, yeah. And I got away with it. Oh, that's Mikey. That's Mikey he's the third guy in, and that's Bob Conrad he's got his arm on Bob Conrad's shoulder. They used to hang out at the Bird's Nest down the street from me.
That's
Nice
Victor.
guys.
And one of those guys is Victor, right?
Let me look. Let me see again. That would be Vic all the way over on the left-hand side. And then it's Bob Conrad. Then it's Mikey Spalaccio. And I don't know who the other guy is. But at any rate.
Yeah, you had close calls where they almost caught you? You were at a betting track, you said?
Well, they weren't going to lock me up. I mean, what are they going to do with me? They took me into custody. What are they going to do? Make me go to court and everything? They're going to pay for an attorney?
Yeah,
I mean, I was told to be there. I was there.
Did you ever have any close calls with these guys where they almost caught you out?
No, never. I played a very good game, guy.
What is it in that movie, Blow, where the dude's changing the tape in the bathroom and shit's taped to him, right?
No, I never wore a body wire, ever.
No.
I never wore a body wire. My mind was really good at remembering dates, details, locations, that sort of thing. And I call them in. I call them in right afterwards. I go to a payphone or something like that and call them in. RV Doc. Hi,
What's
RV
up,
Doc.
man?
How you doing, buddy? Anyway, the truth. You got some people in here that I know. Street stories.
I think it's the same. It's the same crowd of people, man. They
They
swish
kind of
around.
floated
you
over
know?
to your neighborhood here.
Yeah, they swish around back and forth. It's a big.
You floated
cycle.
over to my neighborhood. And
Yeah,
so,
yesterday. Shout out to your show, man. I like your show. It's pretty good. Very informative.
So anyway, let's see what's happened here. Where we at?
All right, so you said
The
they
bus
came
takes
in,
place-
busted you up a couple times. You came to close calls.
Not really. What I didn't like was they banged me around. The FBI agents banged me around just like it was one of the other guys. And I was in a suit and tie all the time. I never went anywhere without being in a suit and tie. I got that from Tony. Tony was a flashy dresser. He was a clothes horse. And I kind of emulated Tony. Tony was a lot older than 12 years older than I was. And I thought he had class. I really did. All I knew about him, I didn't know he committed murders. I didn't know anything about that at that time. But what I did know was they extorted some money from, not extorted, they took part of the skim off of Circus when they made the loan, that crew. And what happened was Tony was involved in it. So was Irv Weiner. He was his partner. And they went out to Deming, New Mexico, and they had a plant out there. And they were also involved in Danny Seaford. He had a Plastomatics or something like that. He was 29 years old. Poor Danny. I didn't know Danny. I never met him, but I heard him talking about him. And Danny got approached. They were laundering money from this Teamsters loan through his business. And he borrowed money from him. Big mistake. You never borrow from the mob.
But he knew, right? Didn't he know?
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He knew what he was getting into. So
but he was only 29 years old. When you were 29 years old, what did you know?
I had balls of steel, man. I would have been like, take the money too. What are they going to do about it? Just like that.
Yeah, well.
Right?
Yeah, well, what they did about it was not good. But Joey Lombardo kept going to him and saying, you can't testify. You can't, come on, you're going before a grand jury. You can't do this. You can't testify. Eventually, what happened was Tony came in. I didn't know this then, but Tony came in for Las Vegas. Joey was there. Frank Schweiss was there. And Frank Schweiss was trying to handcuff him. They were going to take him away to another place and work him over real bad. And Joey Lombardo grabbed Emma Seifert and Little Joe, which is, there's Tony. Yeah. That's how he looked too, man. He had that twinkle in his eye all the time. Tony loved women.
Yeah.
That's all we would talk about when we hang out together. But every time he came into town from Vegas, he used to stop by my house. And he was a very, very close friend of mine. I cried when he died. I really did. I cried. He was that close of a friend. And I didn't lose anybody like that up to that time that I got close to. So it was very different for me. Anyway, I keep saying anyway.
I got a picture of Joey Seifert. I'm getting a picture.
Yeah, Danny, when Danny was murdered, it was very funny to me because on the news camera, there's Danny.
Shout out to Joey Seifert and his
Emma's
brother.
Emma's to his right, Nick and Nick's sister. That's all. There they are.
Yeah, so they came up right when he was with his family and everything, right?
Yeah, but he looked like that age. I mean, that's what you see there is what he looked like. I mean, that was him.
Yeah, I mean, he was with his family when they came and killed him, right?
Yes. Well,
right in the front
he
yard.
was on his way to work, and they clocked him. And they had block cars. You know what block cars are, right?
Yeah.
They jump out and get in front of other cars, and they cause an accident.
Yeah.
They have block cars set up everywhere. They blocked off the police and everything. It was a military operation.
He wasn't getting out of that, right?
No way.
No.
But Joe went along. Joey Lombardo went along. And what he did was he grabbed Emma and Little Joe and pulled him into the bathroom. And when he pulled him in the bathroom, he said, this is a robbery. Just stay right here. You're going to be all right. Meanwhile, the other guys were out, killing her husband and his father. That's what happened. So this is in 1974. And on TV, this is the part that was funny to me at the time. On TV, they had a composite sketch of a guy in a ski mask. It looked like it was a charcoal drawing of Joey Lombardo. And we were all laughing about it. We really were. All the guys and I were laughing about it. But I never knew Danny.
Yeah.
Just because you're connected with somebody in the same crew or even connected at all doesn't mean you know everybody. You keep your nose in your own business unless you're asked, to go someplace else.
So it really was him, right, with the mask that
Oh yeah.
drawing.
Well, they knew it all these years. They knew it all those years, and nothing ever happened. They never did anything about it until Family Secrets.
It's crazy.
Now, in my case, with I had problems with several different people, and Frank Schweiss came into town, and he was telling me about how he killed Tony, how they all did him in the basement. It was a beatdown.
That was this guy, right?
Right.
So what did he tell you?
Gruesome details of how they beat him to death, him and his brother. Gruesome details, very gruesome. And he was looking for a reaction from me. And I was going, wow, that was bad. But he knew I liked Tony, and he knew Tony liked me. And that was the only time that Tony ever came into Chicago and didn't stop by my house to say hi. So the minute I heard he was missing, now I found the bodies yet, I knew it. I grabbed a couple bottles of scotch and went upstairs and started drinking. I went to my room.
How long from them telling you?
About 2 weeks.
That,
about 2 weeks.
Since they did it, or since the bodies got found?
The bodies got found in about 2 weeks. And after that, they were clipping people left and right that screwed up the burial. And then I got told, I forget exactly who told me, but somebody went and told me, somebody in the line of chain of command, I think it was Jimmy Cozo. He told me, don't go to the funeral. You're not wanted there. Do not go there. And I was really glad because Bob Conrad showed up. There's Phil. That's Milwaukee Phil, guy. There's Erwin Weiner.
Where's the Cuzzo picture? I know I got it.
Cuzzo? I don't think you got any pictures of Jimmy. They're rare.
They are, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is Di Stefano.
Sammy D. Sammy D, we used to call him. Di Stefano.
What was his name? Nick Cuzzo?
Cozzo, C-O-Z-Z-O. He was really in deep in the Teamsters Union and the cartage unions and stuff like. He was a union mate, very, very heavy, involved in the unions. If you needed a job someplace, you went to see Jimmy, and he'd hook you up with the unions. You get a union card. If he called over there, they'd say, "Give me a union card." You got a union card. If you're a cement layer or bricklayer, or if you were in the cement department or any type of building, electrical, whatever, they just give you a card.
A lot of no-show jobs and stuff like that, right?
Well, it might be a show job, but it might be for like 2 hours and you don't punch out. You leave, That's it. If you didn't feel like going in, you didn't have to call in. You just called one of your friends and they took care of it. I know I had one. I had a no-show job. I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
No.
You didn't like not doing anything for money?
No, actually, I looked at all the money that was in the porn industry at that time and said, that's what I want to do. I want to make money, real money.
Who are these guys?
That's the Elmwood Park crew. And really, I don't know any of them. No, that's the Heights. And no, these are old timers that I don't know. Never interacted with them in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, that Kozo fortress. I'd been around there. I was telling you about it, and they have the wall around the building.
You know how that got started? Jimmy had his own place, which was a 4-story building. There you go. See where the 4 stories are there?
Yeah.
Okay, that was Jimmy's house. There was a Puerto Rican tavern where the swimming pool is now. You can see the driveway going up there and the little door on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And that tavern used to wake him up because it was open to 4 a.m. So Mikey Switek, demolition expert, that place, the roof went up and it imploded. Everything imploded and landed there.
So what? He blew it up.
Oh, he blew it up. Jimmy boy, he told me, Jimmy, we had me laughing. He said, I didn't know when it was going to go, but it was going to go. And he said, fell asleep in my recliner while I was watching TV. 3:00 in the morning. Boom. My recliner goes 3 feet off the ground, off the floor. And he said, I'm scared to death. I thought we got hit, And he said, then when he looked out the window, he saw it. And that was it. But where that building was, Jimmy bought it. And in the front of that building, if you can put it up again, I'll explain it. You can't see it, but it's on the other side of where the wall you're looking at. You're looking at the Ogden Avenue side.
Yeah, because it's kind of like a triangle, right? It's like a big, it's kind of like a triangle.
It's
like
a triangle. The whole piece of property he owns.
Yeah, it's an island. You can drive right around it. I drove around it when I was out there in Chicago. I drove around and videotaped it all the way around it.
Well, the outside, on the other side, there's bars on the windows now. Yep. That used to be one laundromat, one big laundromat. And
see if I can find another.
Everybody in the neighborhood went to their laundry there. And on the corner of that building, kind of like this one's cut on the opposite here, where the pool is.
Yeah.
There used to be a social club. And that's where all the guys went and hung out at the social club. There was also a driveway where you came in. And that driveway, they'd open the electric door, garage door, and you drive in. They close it behind you. And there was a bar there, an open bar with a bartender. I mean, it had everything, you name it.
Yeah, so it was like fully operational, right? Inside there.
Oh, yeah. And on the bottom floor, in the basement of that 4-story, there was a bookmaking operation. You can't see it because of the wall.
Yeah, and it makes it kind of hard for people to rob you when you have a fucking big wall around.
It also makes it hard to put on a warrant where you're going. You can't go into every domicile on the property. You got to name all the different places, and they were all different addresses.
Yeah, because if you have different addresses, they can't just go in there. That's the same thing.
My sister's apartment, she's upstairs.
Yeah, it's different, right? Just like if the warrant is for one apartment, but it's a big house and it's divided into different sections, and they can't go into. That's crazy.
It was. So at any rate, that's how that became. A funny fact, an unusual fact, is Jimmy's daughter, one of his daughters, Kathy, had her birthday there. And there was a stage built on that one wall that's towards Grand Avenue.
Yeah.
And the pool was in front of the stage. It was all AstroTurf. It was all
fake grass.
You couldn't see cement there, right? On the stage, Gladys Knight and the Pips opened for her wedding at his house.
Wow.
I mean, that's the kind of juice this guy had. He had a lot of juice.
I'm sure.
And eventually he became the capo for after Joey Lombardo came back and everything. He was the capo.
So everyone would go to him and pay respects to him, right?
He'd send collectors out and say, go get my money.
Yeah, and then they would pay him, and then he would pay the bosses.
Yes, that's how it worked. He was upped. He got upped.
So do you have any, was there any times where you felt like, damn, I feel like bad for doing this, to talking to the FBI and things?
No, never. Never.
Like, nah.
No, never. I never gave up a bookmaker. I never gave up prostitution. I never gave up any of the small stuff. Never. The only thing I gave up that was actually prosecuted was homicides and people that were mutilated, that sort of thing. I never gave up. I saw a lot of action going on, but I didn't report in everything I saw.
Yeah. But did they have rules for you? Like, don't get involved with this, but you could get involved with this?
Did I have the rules to follow? I mean, the FBI?
Yeah.
They gave me a list of rules because I was in the porn business. No kiddie porn. No snuff. I had to look through all the smut that was there before I put it on the shelf or behind the counter, because our 8mm films, they were non-talkies and they were smokers, what they used to call smokers. And then we went into Super 8, which was talking films. Then we went into 16mm, and then we went to video. And video was like it. When video hit, it was like very, very good. But you had to watch every piece of garbage that came through, because if it had something in it and you got pinched for it by the local police, they weren't going to help you. It was like Mission Impossible. You're on your own. And there was
you didn't feel back in the day, because a lot of people, I'm sure that they felt like it was a dirty business. You know what I'm saying? Especially back then, like it was taboo.
The only person that ever said that to me was Jimmy Couture. He was old school, born 18 something. And he said, it's a dirty business. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Go see Joy. He's a nice boy. He'll take care of you. But he's the only one. Everybody else, yeah, there's money in that stuff. They don't care what it is.
Yeah,
all they care about is the God Almighty dollar. That's it.
As long as they're
quite frankly, I cared about it too.
Right? Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Well, I didn't have to. I decided to. And I've said many, many times to many people, it was my decision. It wasn't anybody else. I wasn't in a jam or a squeeze where somebody said, okay, you're going to go to jail, or you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that. I went on my own.
And you wouldn't do that to your friends, right?
I didn't. Not once did I write up a 302 on Tony Spilaccio.
So what if you had to report a situation that happened, right? And one of your friends was heavily involved with that situation that you had to report. What would you do then in that situation?
He wasn't there.
This
guy, they were there, but this guy wasn't there.
I'm sure that these guys probably had people to work for the FBI to falsely direct them. I'm sure they did back in the day.
I never knew the informants that were out there. There were other informants out there, but I didn't know who they were. But when they called me in, I said, no, didn't see anything. Nope, didn't talk to that guy. Nope. But I did talk to this one. I did talk to Vince Solano. I met a bunch. I went to the Carlisle hotel for Joey Lombardo's son got married there. Everybody that was there. And I videotaped the whole thing. I had a Betamax, and I did it for them. So they
so you could give them all the names. Right? Yeah, all the names.
I kept a copy for myself and gave it to the FBI. But there was nothing illegal going on. It was a wedding.
Yeah. But there was people that they wanted to identify.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's no more different than a surveillance photo. Getting back to wearing the wire, or I didn't wear a wire. Getting back to wiring my house. Tony was murdered in June of 1986. After I talked to Tom Knight at the Holiday Inn in Madison Halstead, he went to his superiors, and his superiors decided that they would bring it before a judge and get a warrant. And it was an unusual warrant because it wasn't a body camera. It was an actual camera set up in my home. And it got approved, went to the judge. They got the court order. After they got the court order, they go to the technicians and say, okay, what kind of equipment do we need? They send the equipment out. And when it gets there, there's no technicians to hook it up.
Because they don't even know how to use the shit by then, probably.
They didn't want to do it. I went over their head. I went to the U.S. attorney. The FBI didn't want to be involved in it. So being in the electronic business and everything, of videotaping and everything, I hooked it up myself.
That's hilarious.
They weren't happy with me. I was too overzealous.
I hate to interrupt you, but can you take over for 1 second? I gotta handle something real quick. I'll be
Sure
right back
can.
in 1 second. I'll be right back. Thank you.
All right, buddy. How you doing, folks? Ryan Brown, good to see you. Diana's a very nice woman, incredible story. Always. Yes, thank you, Ryan. Big Boy Blue, a smut peddler. Yes, I was. Mike John. Good show. What's up, Red? You guys are. You're here. Street Stories. He's here. Big Boy Blue. He didn't tell Tony he was an FBI informant. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Big Boy Blue. I'll tell you this while Staxx is taking a break. One day when we were drinking scotch over at my house on 4121 Richmond, Tony and I were hanging out, and I wasn't drunk, but I said, Tony, before you say too much, I said, I got something I want to tell you. And he said, what's that? And I said, I'm a mole for the FBI. And he turned around and looked at me and said, no shit. And that's the last we ever spoke of it, period. That's the way it went, Big Boy Blue. Okay, back at that picture that we were looking up. The picture, Street Story said the picture you were showing with the splotchos, that was Nick Solozzi, who's the fourth guy in the picture. He's on the right.
Oh yeah, when I was showing the 4 pictures, right?
Yes, that's Nick Solozzi right there on the right.
So how much time have you spent with this guy?
More than I wanted to, and it was probably only 10 minutes. I went to his basement. I think I'm the only guy alive today, Bill, that actually went to his basement and came out alive. Really?
A lot of people have died by the hands of that guy.
It's a long story. I'll try to make it shorter for you if you want. You want it long or short version?
Whatever you got, man.
I go to pick up Ken Hansen. He's the pedophile that killed the 3 little boys in 1955. Kurt Hansen's brother. Kurt Hansen was a hitman for Jimmy Couture and Fifi Laporte out on the south side. So he wanted me to drive him around, take care of him, get him a driver's license and that sort of thing. And then afterwards, I drove him around, Kurt. But anyway, he calls me up and he says, what time are you going to be out here? He lived out in Tinley Park, and which is, probably around an hour's drive away from where I live. And so I said, I'll be out right away. I'm dressed. I'm ready to go. He slept in late. He slept until like 11 o'clock in the morning every morning. A real prima donna. Gay guy. Real gay. Flamboyantly gay. Yeah. So, the guy hit on me. He tried to molest me. I wrote about it in my book. I wrote all these things in my book. Not all of them, but, some of the stories I'm telling you about. The guy hit on me one night. I was sleeping. He comes into my room.
Oh, man.
It was a mess. At any rate, I go pick up Kenny. And he says, now make a right-hand turn here, make a left-hand turn here. Didn't tell me where I was going. Well, what had happened was, and I didn't know about it, was Kurt had killed one of Sam's collectors, Sam DeStefano's collectors. And so we get to this house, and I really don't know where I'm at yet. On South Sayre. And the garage door opened. It was an electric garage door. It opened up. We pulled inside. The garage door shut behind us. And he had his dog in the car, Doberman Pinscher. We were talking about dogs earlier, you and I.
Yeah.
Well, I picked up dogs way, way back in the 1970. So his dog was in the back of the car. It was his car. It wasn't mine. I left my car out south. And a couple big guys. Sam was no tough guy. Sam was in bad shape. I mean, he had varicose veins. He ran around in his pajamas and robe all the time. He was crazy, but he really wasn't a tough guy. These big guys, I don't know who they are to this day. They guide us down to the basement. In the basement, on the right-hand side, going down the steps, The steps are against the wall.
Yeah.
On the right-hand side, when you get to the bottom, there's like a couch or a love seat. And so somebody told me to sit down there. So I did. They guided Kenny over to a table. And the table was a square table, but it had like an oilcloth tablecloth on it. It was checkerboard, red and white, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was sitting away from me so I could see his back. And I could look at the other guys, and they were all kind of leaning against the wall, that type of thing. They were just hanging out there. And one thing that took my notice right away was it was a finished basement, very nicely finished, had tile on the floor, but there was a drain in the middle of the floor. And I'd never seen a basement with a drain in the middle of the floor before. And I started thinking about it and saying, this is not a good place for me to be. Then I looked over at the wall on the other side, and there was an altar with a black robe on it and candles and what do they call that?
Crucifix?
No, the opposite. A pentagram on the wall. A pentagram. So I looked at that and said, oh, we're in the wrong place. Really, this is bad. Sam comes sauntering down the steps. Yeah. He was that kind of guy. And he sits down across from Kenny so I can see him. And he said, you know what you did, Kenny? And Kenny says, no, what'd I do, Sam? He said, you know what you did? And he's screaming at him. And he becomes very submissive. Sam, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to kill you, Kenny. I'm going to kill you. And I'm thinking, well, if they kill him, they're not going to let me sit around very long. I'm going with
Were you thinking in your mind, like, they're going to kill him right now?
Oh, yeah. Sam, usually when he said that, he was going to kill somebody. I mean, he had two big guys there. I mean, they had guns. They could have bang, and it's over. 2 shots, we would have been dead. But he had a habit of torturing people. he liked to hit them with the balls with an ice pick and all different kinds of bad stuff.
I heard.
Very, very bad guy. So anyway, they start having a dialogue. And while they're having a dialogue, Sam says to, he said he's going to kill him and this and that and everything. And Kenny kind of resigns to the fact that he's going to kill him. And he said, Sam, would you do me a favor? And he said, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your fucking mind? I'm not doing you no favor. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And he said, okay, Sam. He said, okay, what do you want? What do you want? And he said, Sam, when I'm gone, will you take care of my dog? She's up in the car. He went spastic and said, get out of here. Well, that was my cue.
I'm getting.
I was taking steps, 3 steps at a time, going up the steps. On the way in, Anita, his wife, was there. She was cooking in the kitchen, and she gave me a piece of tomato bread because she was cooking. She had fresh bread there, but she was cooking some kind of tomato sauce. And so she gave me a piece. It was very good. On the way out, she says, want some more tomato bread? And I said, no, thanks. I went straight into the car. I drove away, and after I drove away, I told him, I said, don't you ever put me in a position like that again. I said, we could have got killed. He looked around and said, yeah, maybe. That was his attitude.
He just didn't care, right?
I guess not. Actually, Kurt had actually killed his collector. Sam sent somebody out there to collect from him.
Do you want to tell the people what ended up happening to him?
Sammy?
Yeah.
Sammy D. We called him Sammy D. His way, the real way to pronounce his name is DeStefano. And Sam was on trial for the Leo Foreman murder with Tony Spilaccio and with Mario. And at that time, it was kind of a big trial, and Sam was making a big scene about it. He had a bullhorn that he was talking out of, all different kinds of things. And so Tony Spilaccio got together with his brother, Mario, and said, Sam's got to go. We can't do this. We're going down, right? And what actually happened was they called him up and said, "We found out where the snitch is. We know where he's at." And Sam was seething. He said, "Great." He said, "We're going to pick him up. We're going to capture him." And it was on a weekend. And so he said, "Great." And so he said, "We'll come over and pick you up." Well, Mario was a big man. I mean, a huge man, tall, whatever. Tony was shorter, and he had a sawed-off shotgun side by side, and he was walking behind Mario. Mario stepped to the side. Tony fired one shot and blew his arm off, completely off. I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of it or not, in the garage.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And the next shot got him in the head. He was gone. That was it.
And Tony was like Sam's. It was like his mentoree.
No, actually,
right?
Tony was mentored by Milwaukee Phil.
But they did commit murders together, though, right?
I don't know who all was there. Nobody ever talked about who all was there, but I do know this. If you saw that movie that scene in Casino where they had the guy's head in the vice,
yeah,
it wasn't Tony that did that. It was Milwaukee Phil. They just picked the guy up and put him there, so his head was in the vice. Phil's the one that closed the vice. But dramatic Hollywood, they do what they do. His mentor was really Tony. He was assigned by Phil to watch over Tony or Sam and collect money for him and do his muscle work, whatever he had to do. Was he involved in torture? I'm sure he was. But his man that taught him to torture was Milwaukee Phil. That guy had a hitmobile and everything else. Him and Chucky Nicoletti, that was a real crowd. Those guys were dangerous.
What, they would pull people? What did they have, a van or something? They pull people and handle business in the van?
No, they had a car. I believe it was a Packard, and it had all kinds of compartments in it for shotguns, machine guns, pistols, you name it. The license plates used to flip in the back. They had an oil slick that came out in the back. They had a smoke screen that came out. Regular 007 car, way before Goldfinger.
Knight Rider and shit, right?
You got it. They got pulled over. They got pulled over on that case with the M&M murders. They got pulled over on that case. And when they were pulled over, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John Flood was there. And they detained them. And they saw the car. And actually, they were on their way to pick up one of the bodies from the M&M murders. But they found him, Billy McCarthy. And
back in the, what was it, the 80s, 70s and 80s, Chicago was a pretty bloody place, huh?
Very. Actually, in the late 60s and 70s, it was really, really bad. In the 80s, it got worse. It really did. That's when Frank Calabrese was on your show. That's when the Chinatown crew really came up. Joey Lombardo was in prison, and the Chinatown crew kind of came up, but we didn't know about him. We didn't know about Nick Calabrese. All these jobs that were being taken down and everything, we couldn't even guess who they were. They flew underneath the radar the whole time until Family Secrets. Then it all came out. But can you think about it? All the time they knew who killed the Spalacho brothers from 86, and it didn't go to trial to 2007. And Danny Seaford's trial, 1974, they didn't get solace to the family, until 2007.
Wow, that's a long time, man.
They knew who did it.
Do you think it's because of the corruption that went on in Chicago's judicial system?
That was part of it. They just, if there was a witness, they got rid of the witness. So if they got rid of the witness, they didn't have anybody to actually put a trial together. You got to have a witness. You got to have some kind of evidence. You can't just put, well, so-and-so said that he heard that this, it's hearsay, inadmissible, goodbye, it's out.
Do you have any good Accardo stories?
None. I never met Tony Accardo. Tony Accardo was really high echelon. I don't have any stories personally that involved him.
He wasn't someone you could just walk up to
Don
and start
Cheech, how
talking
you doing,
to.
Don
Okay?
Cheech?
Tell you about Kurt. Had to meet Joey Lombardo in the park. He made
Oh.
Diane go with him.
Yeah, Diane Hansen. Diane Hansen was Kurt's wife, and we were all close. Diane was. We got along very good. We reunited through YouTube. Her granddaughter saw me on YouTube and said, "That's Billy," because they knew me as Billy. They didn't know me as Red or Bill or whatever. And
Yeah.
so they said my mom wants to contact you. So we had her on a couple shows. Nice gal, very nice. But anyway, what was the question that came up with?
Ask Red to tell you
yeah.
about the time Kurt had met.
Yeah,
Joey Lombardo.
what had happened was I had well, first of all, Kurt tried to beat the mob out of money, and I was partners with him. And so I said, I'm not getting myself killed over this. So I went to Marshall Cofano, and I said, here's the keys. Here's the combination for the safe. I'm through. I'm out of this. And he said, why? And I said, because that guy told me not to come around no more. And he said he was taking over. And I said, oh, is your car here? And I said, yeah. He said, come on, let's go for a ride. We went down there. Or before we did, he made a phone call. He told me, he said, we went to the payphone. He said, what's his phone number? And he said, dial it for me. He answers, he calls on the phone. I said, this is a bad time to call him. He's not up this late. And he says, yeah, it's me. Meet me on the corner. Puts his hand over the mic. What's the nearest restaurant? And so I told him Stagecoach Restaurant, North Avenue, Wells. And North Avenue and Wells, 10 minutes. Kirk couldn't get his pants on in 10 minutes. You know? So anyway, we get there. And he's got these big bruisers that came with me. I mean, we're all in my car, right?
Yeah.
And Marshall goes it was snowing, and he's walking down the middle of the street. Little tiny guy. He was only 5 feet, 4'11". He's walking down the street, but a powerhouse, a real killer. He killed a lot of people, man. So he's walking down the street. I didn't know that at the time. He's walking down the street. He says, I'm going down the street for a while. And then the other two guys said, come on, Red, come on, let's go take your store back. And I said, I'm not going in there. That guy's got a sawed-off shotgun behind the counter. I'm not going in there. They said, come on, you're with us. And I said, I'm not going in there. So they got rid of him and his girlfriend. And they come flying out of the driveway in a pickup truck. And they left.
Oh, so you're outside and you see them leaving?
Oh, yeah. And when they leave, they don't wave at me or nothing. They want it out of there. These guys scared them to death, right? So I go back in, and they said, come on. And they locked the door, the front door. It was never locked. And I went into the office. I had keys to get in the office. And I opened up the safe. And I started taking money out of the peep shows. And we were dumping it on the ground and stacking it in $10 stacks. We were stacking the quarters in $10 stacks.
Yeah.
Marshall comes back and he looks at it and he says, this looks nice. I like this. I like this. You did a nice job here. And he said, how much for me? He didn't want the quarters. He wanted cash. So I give him $500. That was it. He said, give me $5. You keep the rest.
Yeah.
And that was the deal we made. That was the deal we made. Even when it got up to the point where I was making $25,000, $30,000 a week, he never asked for a dime more.
So you switched that deal around that they gave you and you gave it to him, right? The $500. The $500 every time I got to pick up $500
a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had
But
that deal
he
with
kept
them
his
earlier,
word.
remember?
He was a man of honor. So anyway, later on, I had some problems with Hanson, and I went to Joey, and I said, Joey, is it business or personal? Because this situation was bad. And he said, what happened? And I told him. He said, nobody's ever going to bother you, ever. Nobody will bother you. You're ours. That's it. You're with us. And so I didn't know about this at the time. I didn't know till later. And Diane brought it up. Kirk got whistled in by Joey. And he said, meet him in a park, in a park, a city park. And Joey was sitting up all alone. He was sitting up on the back of the bench and had his feet where you sit. And Diane said that he told her, he said, you got to come with me. He said, that's the only time she ever saw him get down on his hands and knees and beg. She said, he said, you got to come with me. You got to come with me. So they walk up and Joey makes a comment. He says, why'd you bring her with? And she chimes in, very sharp gal. I like Diane. Even today, I love her. She's great. But she chimes in and says, I thought I wanted to go for a ride. So I went with him, which was bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And he said, what'd you think? I was going to kill you or something? And Kirk kind of laughed and he said, go on, get out of here. Go home. And then I straightened the whole thing out. So he didn't get killed.
But he was there to kill, right?
Oh, he was definitely going in the lake. He was going down to Lake Michigan.
Is that the only time you prevented a murder?
No. At least 4 or 5 times I did. I stopped people from killing other people. I don't believe in murder. I do not believe in murder. I just don't believe in it. And people that kill people over money, to me, they're scum.
It's
money
either
you
money,
can always make more of.
money
You can
or
always
women.
make more money. You
It's either
can't
money or women.
back.
Money or women. It's usually money or women.
Even then, it's not worth killing somebody over. You can always find another woman. You can always find other money. If you put your heart to it, it's not worth dying over.
No,
honor?
A lot of people don't have.
Honor, how much honor do you find in a coffin?
A lot of time, people don't value. They don't value life.
I learned to value life at a very young age. I was 18 years old and I learned to value life. And that's the way it was. But anyway, I did save several people's lives. As a matter of fact, I saved Kurt's life twice because he was down that time when Marshall leaned on him at the restaurant down the street in the beginning. He called me on the telephone while Marshall's standing there. And Marshall made me promise. He said, if this guy ever talks to you again, comes near you or anything else, I want you to get a hold of me right away or get a hold of one of the other guys. They know how to get a hold of me, but you don't let it happen. All of a sudden the phone rings.
Was he dodging him for money?
Pardon?
He was dodging the other guy for money, right?
No, not at all. He was the boss. I mean, he was a made guy, a very heavy made guy. He used to run Las Vegas before Tony did, years before, back in the 30s, 40s. He ran Las Vegas. Very well trusted, close friend of Sam Giancana. Very close friend of Sam Giancana, who died in 1975. But anyway, murdered. But anyway, he's talking to Kurt's talking to me. He says, Billy, what are you trying to do? Get me killed? You know what just happened to me? And I said, Kurt, there's a guy standing here next to me, and he made me promise him that I would tell him if you ever tried to contact me again. Click. That was the end of Kurt. Never heard a word from him after that, ever.
So you gave him the heads up, right? Get the hell out of Dodge.
Well, Marshall looked at me. He didn't know if he could trust me at that point,
So there is a prison that holds.
And he looked at me and went like this. So he knew he could trust me. I would do exactly what he told me to do. One time I got whistled in for a problem, and I did exactly what I was told to do. That was it. And that's the way it went. You just follow the rules.
Did you ever have these dudes telling you to come in and meet them sometime and you're like, nah, I'm not coming in?
No. Anybody. I felt very confident about myself. Anybody that would ask to see me, I go and see them. Anybody. But then there was a lot of people that were told, hands off, don't touch Red. Don't ever go near them. Some guys came around one of my joints one time. They had Joker Poker. This is in the 80s. And they went in and took my pinball machines, my jukebox machines, and they pushed them out on the street and put their own equipment in. And I went downstairs. I lived upstairs. I went downstairs and said, what do you think you're doing? Well, you're going to be handling our. I said, get your crap out of here. Put my stuff back in here. Go back to whoever told you to come here. And you tell them what I told you right now. Get a fucking roadmap. You don't belong here.
The Truth said, Red, serious question. Where did you get these guys? Where did it get these guys in the end? Yeah, he ran Vegas, but likely dead now. He probably in hell. Ever have any nightmares of seeing these guys like Dominic Montiglio?
Montiglio, no, I really don't. I didn't know about them being bad people until after September 15th, 1988. I really didn't know what they did until I left Chicago. I really didn't. The ones I knew about, they died. Louis Ebley, he died in 1987. Other people died. Tony was killed in 86. Schweiss was my target because he killed more people than his age. And that was a lot of people. He actually killed Marilyn Monroe. He murdered Marilyn Monroe.
Did he tell you that?
It's on videotape. It's on videotape. We got copies of it.
And what did he say?
Him and Tony Spilaccia went out there as tile setters. And she had just come back from Mexico, and she had terracotta tile that she bought down in Mexico. And they were supposed to be laying it out there. Now, mind you, this is in 62. So they were young guys then. They looked like laborers. They dressed like laborers. And maybe they were even doing it because I know Schweiss used to lay terracotta tile all the time. I don't know if Tony did or not. I always saw him in a suit and tie. But at any rate, what I was told happened was that there was a thing with one of the Kennedys being there, RFK, Robert Kennedy. Yeah. And they waited till everybody was gone. And then they took a chloral hydrate suppository and put it in her rectum. And that showed up as overdose. Now, there were two autopsies done. One autopsy said that the pills never dissolved in her stomach, the Nebutols and whatever.
And another one said there wasn't any pills, right?
That was Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio, who was her ex-husband, but really loved her. They were supposed to get back together. And he was angry. He was really angry at the Kennedys. He was really, really angry. She was going to, on her taped wiretap phone, it was wiretapped by the Secret Service. It was wiretapped by the FBI, the CIA, and the mob. And all of them had wires in those days, hard wires.
Are these phone calls still around them wires?
I can't find them. But I have the tape. I have the tape from Schweiss telling me about it.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. And Roger Toohey, who's a mob historian, he showed pictures of Marilyn's house with all the wires coming through it. It was one guy from Pacific Bell that did all the wiretaps. He's gone. He disappeared.
Wow.
Major cover-up. Major cover up.
She was gonna leak information about them, right? About the Kennedys.
She called on her wiretap phone. She called her publicist and said, "I'm going to blow the Kennedys out of the water." And in doing that, she would have talked about the mob and being passed around by Sam Giancana. She would have talked about Johnny Roselli. She would have talked about a lot of things, too many things. It wasn't in anybody's interest for her to stay alive. She was a loose cannon.
I'm sure. I heard a lot of
It was a
people
bad thing, very bad thing.
I heard there was a lot of people in Hollywood that didn't like her.
A lot.
Yeah, she had a target on her back.
And she's a sad person too. I mean, she had a very sad and lonely life. She was never happy from childhood. She was in foster homes. I mean, all the way up to the very end, to the last day she lived. She'd been institutionalized several times. She had a lot of difficulties. She was never
being with all these crazy guys, jumping from all these crazy guy to crazy guy, you know.
Not to mention Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, all them guys. There was a lot of them.
She got passed around quite a bit.
Quite a bit. I think everyone in Hollywood and the Hollywood, the mob, and political people too. So quite a bit.
It was bad. It was bad.
But man,
I feel sorry for her.
I want to thank you for coming on, Red. I really appreciate you, man. I wish I had more time. I'm definitely going to have you on again. I know you're a wealth of information, and I enjoyed having you on. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Staxx. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
Is there anyone you want to give a shout out before we go, Red?
All your wonderful listeners.
Yeah, man.
Thank you one and all.
Thank everybody for coming in. I really appreciate everyone. Make sure you guys hit the like button on the way out, on your way in, whatever it is you're doing.
Hit that like button. Subscribe. Come on. Hit that like button, guys.
I'll get there, man. I'm working on it every day, you know? I got some big things coming, so people don't sleep on Staxx. I got something big coming tomorrow night.
Before I say anything, before you sign off,
yeah,
I ran into Bill Staxx on his shows when he was talking about his life and his father passed away and being an alcoholic. And he's come a long way in his life, and he's really toughened it out. He's a really good guy, and that's why I decided to be on his show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, definitely. I look forward to doing more shows with you, and future's looking bright, man. So stay tuned, people. And make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Till next time. Thanks, Red.
God bless.